Welcome to another story that will touch your heart. Tonight, you'll follow a journey filled with emotion, with tension, and above all, with a lesson that will never be forgotten. Inside one of the city's most luxurious restaurants, a young waitress becomes the target of cruel humiliation in front of dozens of people. But what no one expected was that on this very night, the truth would come to light and completely change the fate of everyone who was there. This is not just a story. It is a powerful reminder that respect and dignity are worth far more than any fortune. So, sit back, open your heart, and let's live this experience together. The evening began like any other at the most elegant restaurant in town, a place where wealth and status seemed to be stitched into the very fabric of the walls. Outside, the busy avenue glittered with headlights and polished cars, each arrival adding to the sense of exclusivity. Inside, golden chandeliers sparkled overhead, reflecting light onto the polished wooden floors. The walls were adorned with fine paintings, landscapes in gilded frames that silently reminded every guest that they were surrounded by luxury. Tables, dressed in pristine white linen, carried bouquets of fresh flowers that perfumed the air with delicate sweetness, and the low hum of conversation mingled with the gentle clinking of silverware. For most people, it was a scene of comfort and indulgence. For her, it was simply another battlefield. Amid the symphony of elegance, almost invisible to the guests who came to be noticed, moved a young waitress. She was 25, her dark skin glowing faintly under the golden light, her curly black hair tied back into a neat bun. Her uniform was simple, a crisp white blouse, a black vest, and trousers that bore the signs of long days on her feet. In her hands, she carried a tray that seemed heavier than it should have been, not because of the glasses it held, but because of the weight of exhaustion pressing down on her. She smiled politely at each table she passed, but her eyes, brown, tired, yet quietly determined, told a deeper story. She had been working since the early hours of the morning, and though her legs ached and her back burned, she kept moving with the practiced grace of someone who had no choice but to endure. It was then that the large double doors of the restaurant opened and silence seemed to ripple for just a moment. A man stepped in, his presence immediately filling the room. He was tall, his posture straight and commanding, his tailored black suit fitting him like armor. A gleaming watch caught the light, and his sharp jawline and short brown hair gave him an air of power, though it was the arrogance in his blue eyes that announced him more loudly than anything he wore. At his side walked a woman whose beauty was undeniable yet cold. She was slim, pale-skinned, with long blonde hair cascading in waves over a red silk dress that clung to her frame. She held a small clutch in one hand and a phone in the other, scrolling without even glancing up, as if the world outside her screen were undeserving of her attention. The maitre d', a gray-haired man who usually moved with calm dignity, hurried to greet them, bowing slightly as if royalty had arrived. He led them to the center table, the most visible spot in the restaurant, while other guests stole glances that mingled envy with curiosity. The young waitress took a breath so deep it felt like her lungs were trying to steady her heart. She straightened her uniform, pressed the notepad against her hand, and approached. "Good evening, sir, ma'am. Welcome. May I take your order?" she said, her voice polite, steady, despite the quick beat of her pulse. The man's eyes traveled over her slowly, not in admiration, but in disdain, as though every second he spent looking at her was an insult to his standards. He let the silence linger before smirking. Finally, I thought this place was supposed to be famous for its service. Looks like I was wrong. A few heads turned. The waitress felt her face flush, though she forced her smile to remain. I'm sorry for the wait, sir. Several tables arrived at once, but I'm here now to take care of you. The woman chuckled without lifting her eyes from her phone. The man leaned back, crossing his arms. Let's hope the food isn't as disappointing as the service. His voice carried across the room, heavy enough to shift the mood of the evening. The hum of conversation dipped, and guests exchanged uneasy glances. The elegant atmosphere had soured. The waitress noted their order quickly, her pen steady, though her hands trembled inside. She walked back toward the kitchen, her head slightly lowered. But inside, her thoughts stormed. She had endured worse than insults, she reminded herself. She had endured hunger, nights without sleep, and a life of sacrifice. Still, the sting of humiliation burned fresh. She remembered her childhood as if it were yesterday. She had grown up in a neighborhood where cracked walls and leaking roofs were common, where children played barefoot in dusty alleys and dreams often died before they were spoken aloud. Her father had abandoned them early, leaving only debts and shadows. Her mother, a seamstress, had worked tirelessly at an old sewing machine, patching clothes for pennies while exhaustion carved lines into her face. As a child, she had sat at a rickety table, devouring books borrowed from the small community library. She dreamed of being a teacher, of standing before a classroom, of lifting others out of the same despair she had known. Her teachers believed in her, praising her brilliance, assuring her that she could earn scholarships. For a while, she believed them too. But life had other plans. At 17, her mother fell gravely ill. Medicines were expensive, the kind of expensive her family could never afford. Someone had to provide, and so the girl set aside her notebooks and dreams. She left school, trading lessons for long shifts wherever she could find work, first cleaning houses, then washing dishes, eventually serving tables. Each job paid little, but it was enough to keep her mother alive a little longer, enough to keep her younger sister in school. Now here she was, carrying plates for people who would never know the weight of her choices. Every cruel remark, every dismissive glance reminded her that in their eyes she was invisible. Yet her sacrifices were the very reason she kept standing. Back at the table, the man tapped his fingers impatiently. When she returned with the wine, her hand shook slightly as she opened the bottle. He laughed, loud and cruel. Look at that. Even opening a bottle of wine is too much for her. Her cheeks warmed, but she kept her grip steady, pouring without spilling a drop. Later, when his entree arrived, he stabbed at the steak with his fork, chewed once, and spat his judgment with a clatter of utensils. This is what you call fine dining. It's disgusting. He shoved the plate forward, sauce splattering onto the immaculate cloth. Gasps sounded nearby. The maitre d' hurried over, but the man waved him off. No, I don't want excuses. I want her, he pointed directly at the waitress, to fix this. Her throat tightened. but she forced her voice to remain calm. "Of course, sir. I'll have a new dish prepared right away." As she reached for the plate, his voice cut again. "Do you even know how much this meal costs? More than you probably make in a week." His words dripped with venom, loud enough for everyone to hear. The room froze. Guests lowered their eyes, some whispering in shock. The waitress pulled herself free, lifted her chin, and said softly, "I'll take care of it, sir." Then she turned and walked, carrying not just the plate, but the invisible weight of her dignity being stripped in public. Silence thickened until, from a nearby table, an elderly man rose. He was tall but frail, his white hair neatly combed, his cane steadying his steps. His voice, though aged, carried a strength that cut through the tension. "Enough." The arrogant man turned sharply. "Excuse me, what did you just say?" The elder walked closer. "This young woman is doing her job with dignity. What you're doing is not just rude, it's cruel." A ripple of applause spread softly through the room. The waitress lowered her gaze, afraid the confrontation would worsen. "Cruel?" The man scoffed. "I'm paying top dollar to be here. If she can't handle it, she should find another job." "Your money buys a plate," the elder said firmly. "It does not buy respect. Respect is earned by how we treat others." The man clenched his fists, his arrogance faltering under the weight of the elder's words. The waitress's heart pounded. She wanted to thank the stranger, but her voice was lost in the storm of emotions. At that moment, another figure entered the room. A tall man with dark skin, graying hair, and a commanding presence walked toward the table. The staff straightened at once, whispers of recognition spreading. The owner of the restaurant. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice calm but edged with steel. The arrogant man seized the opportunity. "Perfect timing. I want to lodge a complaint. This girl is incompetent. If you value your reputation, fire her immediately." The owner's eyes shifted to the waitress. His expression softened. Then he turned back. "That's interesting because she isn't just any employee, she's my daughter." The room gasped. The man laughed in disbelief. "Your daughter? Don't be ridiculous." But the silence of the staff and the tears brimming in the waitress's eyes confirmed the truth. "She chose to work here like anyone else," the owner continued. "She wanted to understand every detail of this place, and tonight you humiliated her." The arrogant man's smirk faltered. "How was I supposed to know? She's just a waitress." "Just a waitress," the owner snapped. "She is the reason this restaurant stands. When I nearly lost everything, it was her who kept me going. Her sacrifice, her strength, built what you see around you." Applause thundered. Guests rose to their feet. The waitress's tears spilled, but this time they were tears of pride. The arrogant man grabbed his jacket and stormed out, his companion following in silence. As the doors closed, the applause swelled again. The owner placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "This is my daughter. She is dedicated, humble, and strong, and I am proud of her." The elderly man stepped forward. "My dear, your dignity inspired everyone tonight. Never forget, true greatness lies not in wealth or power, but in standing tall when others try to bring you down." The waitress bowed her head, overwhelmed. "I just did what I had to do. My family depends on me. but I never imagined I'd receive so much strength from strangers. Thank you, truly." The restaurant, once heavy with cruelty, was transformed into a place of hope and respect. Conversation slowly returned, but no one would ever forget what had happened. The waitress walked with lighter steps now, her tray steady, her shoulders straighter. For the first time, she felt her silent struggle had been seen. Her father embraced her warmly, tears in his eyes. Some guests wiped their own, moved by the moment. She paused, breathing deeply, realizing something within her had changed. Pain had turned into strength. Shame had turned into pride. She would still face struggles, but never again would she feel invisible. And as the night ended, a quiet truth lingered in the air. Respect is the only currency that never loses its value. So, if this story touched your heart, let it remind you of what truly matters. Share it, remember it, and above all, live it. Because true wealth is never measured in money, but in the dignity with which we treat one another. That night, the restaurant was no longer just a place of luxury and fine meals. It became a stage for a lesson no one would ever forget. The young waitress walked more confidently now, her silent struggle finally recognized. What once was pain had turned into strength, and what once was shame had become pride. And the truth remained clear. Respect is the only currency that never loses its value. So, if this story touched your heart, leave a like. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, and tell us in the comments what moved you the most. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more powerful stories that remind us of what truly matters.